Good afternoon, and thank you, Alan, and thank you for remembering the Yamabushi as well. So I'll touch on the Yamabushi towards the end and share a little bit of wisdom that I found with tribal monks that are 1,300 years old, who believe that God, nature, and wisdom is found in 3 mountains in the north of Japan. And myself and 5 other people had the privilege to spend 6 days with them in absolute silence, whilst fasting and hiking between 8 and 10 hours a day. I didn't know what I signed up for, but it was very valuable in the end. But I'm writing about that at the moment on my blog, and if you're interested, you can find out more later on about that. But today, I want to talk about inner wisdom, mindfulness. And I suppose mindfulness is a word that, from a Western standpoint, we've all become quite familiar with over the last few years. It's become popular in the media, but I think from a mental health perspective, we're all quite aware of it. And I suppose there's an interesting thing I noticed this morning, and I have some written notes here, because to describe mindfulness for you, I had all my notes on my phone this morning as I was arriving here. And I came and had a driver, and I left the car. I thought I'm really organized, and I left my phone in the car. So I had no phone and I had no notes prepared. And I think if mindfulness is anything, it's not to help you to remember things. It's actually to help you forget things. So it's the capacity to walk away from that situation and think, well, you guys are going to hear something slightly different than what I crafted and is on my phone. And hopefully this is even better. But there was an interesting article this morning in the Irish Times, and they were talking with Kanye West, who's a controversial figure at best. But Kanye was talking about mental health and talking about his own struggles with mental health. And he made a comment. He said, making all this money, but I'm still ending up in debt. And the debt that he was talking about was the anxiety. The debt that he was talking about was his mental health. The debt that he was talking about was the voices, the noise, the chaos, the destructive tendencies that he had in his own life, and how they led to him being involved in some things that were detrimental to his career. But fundamentally, he's able to stand up now and be counted and acknowledge them. So what I want to talk to you about is my story in mindfulness. How did I come to this point? Where was I beforehand? And what lessons have I learned? So my background is in private equity, hedge funds. I went to London when I was 19. I built and sold multiple companies over the last 20 odd years. I've made a lot of money. I had beautiful houses. I had incredible sports cars. I had fantastic holidays. I had all the things that everybody believes that will actually make you feel a happy person. But happy is an incredibly subjective thing. And then this little guy arrived. So Joshua Raphael Caffrey was my second child. And Joshua arrived when we were on holiday in Spain. He arrived prematurely, 26 weeks. Joshua arrived on our doorstep. At this moment in time, I just exited a business in London. We were thinking about where we're going to live next. Will we live in Spain? Will we live in Canada? Where will we go? And Joshua arrived. At 26 weeks, a premature baby determines pretty quickly where you're going to spend the rest of your time, and that's in neonatal intensive care. And for us, that was neonatal intensive care in Spain, in Malaga, in 2010, when very few people spoke Spanish, especially our medical team. But as I say, wisdom can be sourced from the youngest of souls. And this guy taught me so much that I'll never be able to repay him in the rest of my life. But the journey started in that hospital. The journey started with me understanding how to deal with crisis management in the real world, not just the business world. Because let's be fair, that's all bullshit, right? When it comes to your kids and your family and your friends, this is what's important. And it brings in leadership. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit of the story, but before I do, I just want everybody to take a moment, okay? and I want you to visualize something for me. So don't worry, I'm not going to hypnotize anybody. This is safe. All I want you to do is just close your eyes for a brief second. When you close your eyes, just take in a nice deep breath and breathe out slowly, just so that you can allow the body to relax and center yourself back into the room. We've all had a busy coffee break. I want you to just call into your mind a great leader, somebody that you truly admire, somebody, whether it's from your own business, from your family, somebody you've seen in the media. I just want you to visualize, who do you see as a great leader? Who inspires you? Okay, hold on to that thought and bring yourself back into the room, please. Thank you. So, there's nobody coming to save you. The Yamabushi teaches this. In mindfulness and Buddhism, we're taught this. And I'm a student of Eastern philosophy. I'm currently studying my master's in mindfulness based cognitive therapy in UCD. But the principle of there's nobody coming to save you is so important, because we are all responsible for ourselves. Nobody else is going to help you when things are going wrong. And that could be in your business, your personal life, or your sport. Whatever it is. When things start going wrong, there's nobody coming to save you. But I'm very fortunate that I get to work with the 1%. So I get to work with professional sports people, I get to work with global CEOs, and I get to see the mindset and what they have that dignifies them and allows them to be in that position to step outside of the norm. Well, let me go back to my story. So we're in Spain. We're stuck there. It's the 4th day of our holiday. We have a 4-year-old with us, and we have got no way of getting home. We now have a child who's in neonatal intensive care, and he stays there for 6 months. And he has pneumonia, collapsed lungs. He has to have induced comas. He has bronchiolitis. He has everything that you wouldn't want any child to have at that time. So what have we got to do? We have to remain calm. We have to remain calm, because there's a 4-year-old who's confused. There's myself and my wife who are confused. So calmness in the context of crisis is about making sure that you take care of yourself, but you also project for everybody else so that nobody starts to panic, because that's not going to help. We had to listen. And listen is an important thing. I always like the differences between listening and hearing. If I'm hearing, I can hear the cups in the distance. But hopefully many of you are listening to me. Maybe some of you are just hearing me. But most of you are listening to me. And it's a difference between paying attention and being focused on what's being said, as opposed to just hearing it. And if we think about the noise and the negativity and things that go on inside our head, we can hear all that noise all the time. But the 1% are able to cut through that. And they're able to listen to what's important. And what's important generally for most of us is in here. As I said to Alan before we started, wisdom comes from your deep instincts. And everything up here is generally going to get in your way. So we had to listen to each other, we had to listen to a 4-year-old who had his needs. We had to listen to a medical team who spoke a different language to us. So we really had to pay attention when they talked to us about the likelihoods or not of Joshua surviving. And on day 1, he was given 48 hours. So he lasted 6 months. And then we had to listen to them tell us that they wanted us to become his carers, and they wanted us to continue to stay in Spain because he wasn't well enough to even be flown home by air ambulance. But they could get us to a situation where we were 2 kilometers from the hospital, and a doctor could call every day. So we listened, we became his carers, and we were now taking care of him 2 kilometers from the hospital. And he was tube fed, oxygen dependent, you name it. So I'd gone from the heights of the London city, running a company with 300 people, transacting hundreds of millions of dollars, to being a carer for a small child. And now Dee from Barrettstown is going to talk to you today, and I can tell you now that all of the things that I've achieved, and they're documented on the internet, nothing was as difficult as taking care of a sick child. And measured. We had to be measured. So measured in business, measured in my personal life, measured everywhere else. What did measured mean in that environment? Probably the best example I can give you of being measured was that we're now into the journey where we've been a carer for Joshua. We're now 4 months into being his carer, so he's 10 months in Spain. We're 10 months in Spain as a family. And as would often happen, we'd have him at home. This particular day, we couldn't sustain his oxygen levels, so we knew we need to get him to hospital. This day was Christmas Eve, 2010. And on this day, we felt it was pretty bad where he was going. So we rushed him to hospital. The three of us arrived, brought him in. They took him into intensive care. And they said to us, he's got to go back onto life support. And this would have been the 4th time Joshua was on life support. And if anybody has ever seen anybody being put on life support and intubated, it's a pretty harrowing thing. When you watch a baby be intubated, they hold down his arms and legs and they force tubes into him, and they then put him on life support system. So this was hard for us to watch that this last time. But equally, we had to think, it's Christmas Eve. We have a 4-year-old who now understands what Santa is. And we're still his parents. He's our son. Joshua's our son. So that night we went home on Christmas Eve and carried out the tradition that we still carry out to this day, although now he's 13. He probably won't really be that interested. But we put the flower in front of the fireplace so that we could catch Santa's footprints. We put out the food for the reindeers so that we could see the evidence. And we all went to bed. And the next morning, we have some great videos. Some of the happiest video footage of that morning is watching this 4-year-old get so excited about Santa. And as parents, we had to be measured in that moment because we also knew in the back of our minds there was something difficult waiting for us when we came through. There was something difficult waiting for us in the afternoon. But we had to stay on, be good parents, and be measured. And all of these traits together bring us to resilience. And we've spoken about resilience today. And for anybody who's here today and you've been through a process, you've already demonstrated resilience. But if there's anything we can teach ourselves, our children, or our employees, it's resilience. Because in a challenging world, as Kanye West said, who has millions but yet felt miserable, we have to understand the importance of being able to be mindful. Mindful of ourselves, mindful of our children, mindful of those around us. And when I think about the resilience side of things, it draws me back to how I work with my clients or how I work with businesses. And if anybody's seen my content online, you've probably heard me rattle off this mantra. And that is, I teach people, wake up, show up, do the work, and repeat. And repeat. And it's wake up every day. Show up for yourself. Do the work and repeat. Because there is no end goal. In business, in life, in sport, it's a journey. It's always the journey. And when we realize it's always the journey, we actually start to feel a little bit freer about things. But when I teach people to bring meditation or mindfulness into their business, wake up, show up for yourself is hard because you've got to wake up every day and meditate and find 5 minutes for yourself. When you implement mindfulness into your day or business, you've got to remember to do it every day. But the consistency and the success in the context of what you've done to get yourselves here today is because you're resilient and you're able to wake up, show up, and do the work. So if I could ask you to take anything away today, it's to remember resilience. Remember resilience. Talk about the older, wiser self. But before I come on to this, the younger version of me, before I had the wisdom that my son gave me, eventually lost Joshua. And a few weeks after that last visit to Malaga Hospital, we lost Joshua. And we had a last battle where we had to fight to have him die with us at home because he'd spent too much time in hospital and we were his carers. So we wanted to fight a battle to say, if we're able to take care of him at home, why can't he be with us and die at home? And one of the most beautiful things that I can say to you is that when you're allowed to come together as a family, when you're allowed to come together and commune as a unit, and when you're allowed face the most difficult times in your life together, you truly appreciate the value of the fight. Because the hospital wanted us to bring him to the hospital to die. And if you think of the irony of that, they didn't want him anymore in the hospital. They wanted us to care for him because we'd already been there for 6 months. But in the end, they wanted him to die in hospital. But we fought the fight. And in many ways, my wife is an incredible person through this too. But we got to have him die with us peacefully at home, which was a very special event. I'm not going to go too much into detail on the older, wiser you, but it's an exercise. If anybody wants, they can jump on my website. If you put your email address in, we will add you to a mailing list. We're going to send out an older, wiser self direction next week, which is a really interesting exercise. It's about 1,500 years old. And in essence, it just allows you to sit with yourself and call forward the older, wiser version of you, have them stand in front of you and ask them, what could I do a little bit more of in my life? So it's very interesting what that 30-year older version of you says. And what's even more interesting, what can I do a little bit less of in my life? Generally, you find that the less is where the bigger learnings are. Things that we do that don't necessarily serve us very well. And one last point I just wanted to touch on. Make this move. Help I press the right button. So yes, if you want to go onto the mailing list, you'll find me. Google me, justincaffrey.com, and all the stuff comes up. Anyway, if you just type in Google, one of the great ways of having a name that's quite unusual. But I just wanted to share one last thing with you. You know, we talk about business in the context of those lessons that we've taken away, and let's be a better listener, be more measured, build a sense of resilience so that we can get through these difficult times. And often I'm asked by people, where's aggression? Where's the kill or be killed approach in the context of what I need as a business person? There's a very interesting old Buddhist fable, which is about two snakes in a village. One snake rests on one mountain and he's treated as a deity. All the villagers come and fawn upon him and rest gifts at his, I was going to say his feet, I don't have feet, but rest gifts in front of him. The other snake is on the other mountain and he's hated by the villagers. Nobody wants to spend any time with him. One day a wise monk comes past and speaks to this snake. And the snake says to him, I really would like to be more like the other snake, more like the one who's treated as a deity. I'm fed up of being the bad guy. Monk says to him, well, you know, a couple of ideas for you. Maybe you should stop killing people and maybe less biting of people. That would be really helpful. Snake goes, wow, is that it? Okay. Snake implements these wise words. A few days in, people are nice to him. A few days more, some kids are teasing him. A couple of days later, they're throwing rocks at him. Within 2 or 3 weeks, people are hitting him with sticks. He's now getting kind of bruised and battered, and he's really thinking this didn't work out as such a great policy. Monk walks past again, and the snake says, hey monk, that wasn't great. You know, I kind of got beaten up a lot. So the monk asked him, what has he done? Snake explained he'd stopped biting and attacking, and he decided he was just going to be nice to everybody. And the monk said to him, I told you to stop biting people, and I told you to stop attacking people. But I didn't tell you to stop hissing at people. And if you want to understand mindfulness and Buddhism and Eastern philosophy in the context of business, it doesn't mean that we need to give up on everything it is that protects us as human beings. But what it does mean is that we don't project nastiness forward. So we can still be good to ourselves, we can still be good people, and that's what life is all about, I hope. So lastly, just to share with you, mindfulness. So again, be mindful of where you are in your journey. Well done for getting to this point. Be mindful of the company that you make today and the networks and connections that you get to make with people. And then as we go to eat soon, be mindful of your food. So mindfulness is an all-encompassing approach to life, to just be a little bit more appreciative as to why we're here. And if you want to read the blog, that was me 3 weeks ago with the Yamabushi in the most incredibly harrowing experience of my life that I had no idea what I'd signed up to. It was only when I arrived I realized that 2 of the other people who were doing it with me were ex-special forces. And I'm not, I can assure you. I spent a lot of time in the city of London just typing, so it was quite shocking. But I'm writing about it on my blog, so if you want to read about it, it's a lot of fun. But there's some great insights from an incredible 74-year-old who brought us up mountains for 8 hours a day and hiked with us and brought us through incredible experiences. So that's what I want to leave you with. A little bit more resilience, a little bit more kindness, but ultimately remember to take care of yourselves and your family. Thank you. So if you'd like to find out more information about me, just simply Google me, Justin Caffrey, or go to my website, justincaffrey.com, where you'll find lots of more interesting insights into the world of mindfulness and meditation and how I implement that into my daily life. I also give you some simple tricks that you can use to help you find a little bit more happiness and a little bit more wellness in your life. I'm also on social media, on LinkedIn and Instagram, where I share weekly and daily updates. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about being a happier, healthier you, jump online and check it out.